and members of the public. Welcome to tonight's ordinary meeting of the Hillshire Council on this being the 28th of April 2026, not 2016. Can we start by giving Natalia another big round of applause? Thank you so much. That was a really powerful performance. I'm very, very impressed, and it's clear that you've got a great set of vocals and a great future ahead of you. So thank you so much for leading us in both verses of the National Anthem and making us sound semi-good. So thank you very much. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land in which we meet today. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and as I'm accustomed to doing so, I'd also like to acknowledge our veterans and all those who have and who are currently serving our great nation. This public meeting is required to be live streamed on Council's website, and a person's image and or voice may be broadcast. This is outlined in the Council's adopted code of meeting practice available on Council's website. Attendance at this meeting is to be taken as consent by person to their image and or voice being live streamed. If any person attending this meeting, including members of the public, do not agree to being live streamed, you can choose to leave the meeting before the meeting starts. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result from defamatory comments made by persons attending meetings. All liability will rest with the individual who made the comments. The recording will be published and made available on Council's website for the balance of the Council's term or 12 months, whichever is the longer period. In addition, the recording will be retained as a Council record. Members of the public are afforded the privilege of attending this meeting to witness the Council making its decisions. Individuals acting in a disorderly manner can be asked to leave the meeting. Members of the public must remain silent, must not bring flags, signs or protest material, and must not disrupt the meeting. As we get underway, can everyone please make sure that you've got your mobile phones on silent? The person must not live stream or use an audio recorder, video camera, mobile phone or any other device to make a recording or photograph these proceedings unless you have prior authorisation of the Council. Tonight's prayer will be given by Reverend Carmel Sheridan of Wesley Castle Hill Uniting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. Thank you, General Manager. It's lovely to be invited to be here. I want to also pay my respects to those of other faiths besides the Christian faith, and I acknowledge your presence and respect each one of your traditions. Tonight's prayer will be brought in the Christian tradition. Gracious and faithful God, you are the breath of life, the one who gathers every people and holds every neighbour in love. We come together this evening with a full agenda, but also with open hearts. Before the motions are raised, before decisions are weighed, we pause in gratitude for the gift of this shared work and for one another. In these days, our nation has stood in the quiet of dawn, at memorials and cenotaphs, whispering again those solemn words, lest we forget. We hold them gently now, those who never returned, and the families who learned to live with the absence, for the peace that we have inherited and which was shaped by courage and sacrifice, lest we forget. Loving God, we bring before you the people of the Hillshire community, neighbours that we are called to share with and to serve, for those carrying deep burdens, for households stretching too little across too much, for parents making quiet sacrifices, for older neighbours enduring much in silence. Meet them, tender God, in the ordinary places of their lives and bring comfort where there is strain, dignity where there is need, and may this council and its councillors be a place where their voices are heard and their worth upheld. We remember those without secure shelter, even as our skyline grows and changes, for every new street and structure, may there also be space made for those still searching for home. Teach us to measure progress not only by what is built, but by who is welcomed and who finds belonging. As this month of May begins, we hold in prayer all who live with fear behind closed doors. For every person experiencing domestic and family violence, grant courage, protection, and pathways to safety. I give you thanks for those who serve in this place tonight, each councillor, the mayor, the deputy mayor, for those behind the scenes, for their time, their commitment, and the unseen weight of responsibility which they carry. We remember also those who support them, their families, partners and friends who share the cost of their service. Bless them with patience, strength and joy. May love sustain every home connected to this work. And so we ask your blessing upon this council, every conversation and decision, every act of leadership this evening. May your wisdom guide, your compassion shape, and may integrity hold firm. Let this community be a place of safety where all may flourish. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thanks for your company at dinner. We always are delighted to see you here and to have you here with us. And can I just say that you're a breath of fresh air across our community. I think everyone in that chamber will agree with me when I say that. And the way that you bring people together from the hills and even across all the face with your recent IFTA dinner as well, which was fantastic. And the work that you do in that domestic and family space as well, serving our community. And if you go down to Wesley any day of the week, it's a hive of activity. Lots of community groups that you host there as well. So thank you for what you do for our community.
Thank you for all
and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We move to item 1, confirmation of the minutes, ordinary meeting of council, 14th April 2026. Moved by Councillor Bonham, second by Councillor Uno. Is there any debate? No debate, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Those minutes are carried. Thank you, councillors. Any apologies this evening, councillors?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note in the business paper that Councillor Jetty is absent, and I ask that a leave of absence be granted for Councillor Jetty.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Cox. Is there any debate? No debate, I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Thank you. Apologies are accepted and a leave of absence is now granted to Councillor Jetty. Councillors, any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Uno?
I'd like to declare a conflict of interest, a pecuniary interest, conflict of interest for item 9, please, and I will be leaving the room as I have a referral relationship with Landon.
Thank you. Any further conflicts? Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary significant interest in item number 3, and I will be leaving the room.
Thank you. Any more declarations of interest, councillors? No. We move to Merrill Minute number 10/2026. Castle Hill Showground is not an appropriate site for a school. Councillors, you may have seen last week that the Daily Telegraph reported the New South Wales Government is considering the acquisition of community land at Castle Hill Showground as the site for a future public primary school. The need for a new school at the showground hasn't popped up overnight. We've been calling for a new school within the showground precinct for a decade. In 2017, the former Liberal government upzoned the precinct, which allowed for 10,000 new dwellings to be built. At the time, I worked with the member for Baulkham Hills, the Honourable David Elliott MP, and advocated to the New South Wales Government to pause the rollout of homes until adequate infrastructure had been supplied. As a result, the government set a cap of 5,000 dwellings for the site until a site for a school had been located and the school funded. In 2023, the current New South Wales Minister for Planning and Public Spaces, the Honourable Paul Scully MP, removed the cap to allow an additional 4,500 dwellings to be built without identifying a site for the new school. Our Fight for a Fairer Hills Future campaign revealed 40% of Hillshire schools are over their enrolment cap by more than 100 students. Castle Hill High was identified as operating at 226% capacity with 51 demountables on site. We've been calling for the New South Wales Government to build more schools in the hills. We've been advocating for a new school for the Hills Showground precinct, which will eventually be home to over 20,000 residents. But building a school on the actual showground is not the answer. We became aware of the government's intent to secure a portion of the showground for a new school when the Department of Education arranged a meeting with council officers to discuss their findings for a new school site in the precinct. The meeting was scheduled for Monday the 23rd of March, but then cancelled by the department. Since then, the department has withdrawn from any further discussions with council. Castle Hill Showground is an irreplaceable community asset. It has been a cherished Hills icon since 1890. It will be a key site to provide cultural, social and community infrastructure to support our booming population, and we have an adopted master plan to make this happen. More than ever, the showground will be needed as the background for tens of thousands of people living in apartments within this precinct, many who have already moved in, and there are many, many more on the way. The government has been aware of the need for a new school in the showground precinct for over a decade. They already owned land in the precinct where our former council chambers were, next to where Hill Showground Station is now, which they acquired in 2014 for the construction of the metro. This could have been identified as the school site for the precinct. Instead, this land has been approved for apartments, which are currently under construction. It would be a shocking breach of community trust for the government to wait until after selling the developable land to private developers to then earmark the showground as the preferred location for the new school. It's great to see that the New South Wales government has finally turned their attention to finding a school for the showground precinct, but you can't replace one type of infrastructure our community needs with another. I'd also like to clarify some comments made by the Deputy Premier and Minister for Education, the Honourable Prue Carr MP, in the Daily Telly article last week. The Deputy Premier said, "It's a shame that a genuine attempt to seek information about the availability of council land in the broader Hills area was hijacked by the Mayor and local member as part of a political campaign. I've not hijacked anything for political purposes. I've merely hoped to secure more information about a council meeting and responded honestly to a media inquiry from the Daily Telegraph. I hope that we can work constructively with the New South Wales Government and that the Minister can instruct her department to reinstate the meeting so that we can all secure the best outcome for Hills residents and children. Accordingly, I move that 1, this mayoral minute be received, and 2, council write to the Minister for Education, the Honourable Prue Carr MP, requesting a meeting to discuss the government's investigations into finding a site for a new school in the Castle Hill Showground precinct." Councillor De Bassi.
Madam Mayor, thank you for your mayoral minute this evening. One word can describe it: outrageous. It's been a long time that a school has been identified for the Castle Hill Showground, and it's the government's responsibility to provide a school. As you said, schools are overcrowded in that area. It's absolutely crazy. Castle High School, 51 demandables. Those kids are walking from demandable to demandable in the rain and they're in muddy waters to get to class. It's absolutely outrageous where the state government is doing nothing. I think the Minns government, and particularly the Deputy Premier, Prue Carr, should be delivering for the whole of the state, not specific areas, and excluding the hills. Madam Mayor, I think that it's about time that the state government came to the table and spoke to us, council, for the benefit of the whole community, the whole of our shire, and not have secret meetings about what they're proposing. The thought of using Castle Hill Showground for a school site is absolutely outrageous. That's like the federal government taking over Victoria Barracks, or the state government acquiring Moore Park. You know, that's all they seem to be doing, is destroying great places we have in Sydney already, with Victoria Barracks and now Moore Park Golf Course for development. Madam Mayor, I think that I welcome your mayoral minute this evening. I think it's absolutely outrageous that what is happening here. A school is well and truly needed. The Minister, Mr Scully, should not have raised that cap until he found a solution for the infrastructure. It's like the cart before the horse. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing this to the attention of the council and the community as a whole. I was deeply troubled when I read this article in the Daily Telegraph the other day, And I'll be honest here, a number of residents reached out and wanted to know what council were going to do about such a disgrace. There's no doubt that we do need another school, not only just a primary school, but another high school in the Castle Hill area. And as the mayoral minute says, and Councillor Damasi has said, the cap was lifted way too early. The cap was designed and put in place to secure a school and appropriate infrastructure before the houses came. We've seen and we've spoke at length about proposals elsewhere in this precinct, particularly the proposal up on Kentwell Avenue at Castle Hill, and the lack of infrastructure that's proposed to supply those people that live in that potential development of 1,400 dwellings. Now, we're talking here about taking away part of the Castle Hill showground to use as a school. Madam Mayor, when you build a new community, and I'll refer back to the proposal on Kentwell Avenue again, we need open space for our community. We don't have a lot of it, not a lot more is proposed, and here we are looking at a potential prospect of having some of that taken away for the purpose of a school. Madam Mayor, for years there's been conversations within the Castle Hill precinct of the government purchasing different parcels of land for the purpose of a school, and they've never really come to fruition, clearly, from what we've seen here today. And I could only presume that the government aren't prepared to spend the funds required to purchase land in R4 zone. Obviously that's going to come at a price. However, I question whether they've considered acquiring other properties that may be in an R2 zone, for example, maybe a little bit further just outside that precinct boundary, but less of a price and not taking away our open space. To contemplate taking away part of the showground for a purpose of a school just astounds me. I've been down to see the Castle Hill Agricultural Society over a number of times over the past few years, and in their little office they have what I will call the original grant to the community signed by the department, or back then by the Crown, outlining that this site must always be used for community purposes. Now, some would argue a school is community purposes. I would argue that it's open space, something for the community to use as a broader whole, and does not lend itself to a school. Madam Mayor, you've rightly put here that the government had ample opportunities to purchase other parcels of land, and yet they chose to sell that off for development, and here we are now, they're scrambling to find a site. I stand with the community and I say no to this proposal. I stand with the users of the showground who are absolutely appalled that this is even being considered. But Madam Mayor, I think to progress this forward, as you've rightly put in your mayoral minute, we do need to have a serious discussion with the government, and I do welcome that meeting between yourselves and the Minister and Council staff to identify the government's findings, identify what other land they may have considered, and find out exactly what they're proposing here, because I'm sure I speak for the whole of our community, a school does not belong on the showground precinct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blue. Any further speakers? Councillor Grazeva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, I will be voting against this motion. This is not enough information for me to assess actually what's happening in this situation. So for me, Daily Telegraph, it's not a true source of information. So the 11th of May will be inquiry in Parramatta City Council, ICAC inquiry, and I want to make sure that my decision based on data and research-supported analysis, unfortunately, as I said, Daily Telegraph, it's not a true source of information for me, and I will be voting against. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Severage and then Councillor Cartwright.
Mayor, I think it is actually fantastic that the state government is now actively looking for a school, given the much needed requirement for additional dwellings, which is of course happening, not only in the hills, but across the state in response to migration and increased population growth. I also note that in your mayoral minute, you have said that it is considering the acquisition of community land, and as Councillor Grazeva mentioned, the Daily Telegraph is possibly not a true source, and I would recommend that we directly talk to the Education Department, as you've suggested, and actually clarify what are the many areas that they're considering, and possibly put our case why showground may not be the right place. I mean, like to emphasize the fact that as council and councillors, we are in a better situation and we have a better idea of the importance of showground. Somebody who's making decisions at a higher level may not be privy to that importance. So it is left up to us to actually emphasize that. And I recommend that we do that and then also engage into the active discussion and see what are the places. I once again emphasize the fact that it's a great thing that we are looking for a school, and we should sort of be helping the government along to find the right spot as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Severaj. Councillor Cartwright.
Madam Mayor, on the 5th of September 2025, you put on you've quoted on Facebook saying our schools don't have the room for the number of students that are currently in the hills, let alone the students yet to arrive. For far too long, our schools, teachers and students have dealt with record student numbers, dozens of demountables and substandard facilities. We are calling on the state government to give us the 15 new schools we need to accommodate the new students joining us in the next decade and to fix our current schools that are crumbling. Madam Mayor, for 12 years, the Liberal government has been in power in New South Wales for 12 years, 12 whole years. And in the Hills, one of its safest Liberal seats, it has failed to deliver the schools our growing community so desperately needs. So my question to you, Madam Mayor, is this: where exactly do you propose the land will come from to accommodate the 15 new schools required, particularly within the Hills Showground precinct?
Well, this is what I would say to you, Councillor Cartwright, is the Liberal government did not sit around doing nothing for the Hills. They delivered North Kellyville Public School, they developed Bellister Public School as well. They planned and started the upgrades to Samuel Gilbert, Matthew Pearce, Castle Public, so they did not sit here and do nothing. I think there is plenty of land in the precinct that the government could purchase if it chose to, or it could build on its own land. The fact that they're now deciding to build on the show, potentially on the showground, is not right and not fair.
Can I just ask, but where do you propose, and,
Well,
and that's a question to you, General Manager, where are the lands that in the hills that you would find?
Mr. Edgar.
Madam Mayor, through you. Look, it's very difficult, but what I will say this is that the government purchased our previous site at the showground, so where the Civic Centre was and the Hills Centre was and our former operations depot was. There was a lot of land around that metro station that potentially could have been used for government purposes, but instead a decision's been made to rezone it, and it's roughly 1,600 apartments on that site. There was, I think, in the former government, there was a expression of interest process which asked developers within the precinct or nearby to give their ideas and how might they contribute to the school. I'm not aware of the outcome of that, but beyond that, it's like when we need to buy land for our open space or our road, we have to identify the site, zone it, and then be prepared to acquire it. So they're the options and the short answer to that question.
Could acquire the land if they wanted to. They're choosing not to because they don't want to spend money. Councillor Cox. Councillor Massey, your question?
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you to the General Manager. I know I've already spoken. Is it Council's job to actually find sites for schools for the state government? Is that our role?
Madam Mayor, in fairness, we've been asking for this since it was rezoned. So you might recall the councillors that were here when at around the time that was a fairly engaged council around. The council didn't mind it to be a priority precinct. In fact, it supported the government doing the planning for it, but it did expect the infrastructure required to support it. As Madam Mayor said, in part that was related to the cap until a solution's been found, but I know that hasn't answered your question, but it usually falls out as part of the planning for the precinct.
Thank you. Councillor Cox and then Councillor Bonham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an excellent mayoral minute, and obviously it's timely. We have to respond to things when they come up. I would never say the Daily Telegraph is an encyclopedia that can be cited with certainty, but if the minister has been misquoted in the article, the minister should have come out by now and said, no, that's not true, it's all lies, and she hasn't. So one puts a bit more weight on it, and I think the response is appropriate. I'm not sure what Councillor Gretsieva was getting at with ICAC and Parramatta and how that ties into this mayoral minute. I didn't see anything about that there. So yeah, the minister was quoted in the mayoral minute from the article, saying it's a shame that a genuine attempt to seek information of the availability of council land in the Broader Hills area was hijacked by the mayor and local member, etc., part of the political campaign. This is the minister acknowledging this. The cap should never have been lifted until the school was found. That's obvious to everyone. Quite rightly, Councillor Cartwright has cited that you have been saying there are not enough schools for a long time. If someone says we need more housing for refugees, it doesn't mean the government can just take over their house and put the refugees in and say, there we go, problem solved. Just because we pointed out the problem to the government doesn't mean we have to give up our land or our facilities to solve it. I think that logic's pretty flawed. I'm also very concerned, as I keep hearing from some of the state ministers and councillors essentially advocating mob rule. You Liberals were in for 12 years. This is a Liberal seat. The Liberals should have looked after the Liberals and said, screw you to the Labor areas, I guess. You look after your own when you're in power. You don't govern for the community. That seems to be the attitude that has been espoused, and it's deeply concerning to me. I represent all the constituents in my area, not just the ones that voted for me. It's odd also that we've spent far too many hours and weeks debating and talking about it, but apparently taking over some of the Crown land that is the showground for a school is a good idea, but taking over a former pony club field to turn it into a field is a bad idea on Crown land. It seems very odd. The showground's a great place for schools, but Fred Cat, where there's an open oval, is not a good place for an oval. The obvious solution to this was there at the time when all the rezoning was done, because instead of putting two 10-storey buildings next to each other, they could have put one 20 and used the other land for a school. And then there'd be the same amount of people plus a school at almost no cost to the government when they own the land. It's similar to what they could have done for sorting out the SES situation for us when they were rezoning all that other land they owned. Again, at no effective, essentially no cost to themselves. And this was when the Libs were in power. It appears the bureaucrats don't see the vision, but if you just create a higher zoning next to the land you're going to use for a non-residential purpose, you have the same number of new residents and the land for your school, and the land for your SES building. It's also similar to Cherrybrook, where they're apparently going to sell off all their land, and we're not going to get a school there either, but thousands and thousands of people near already overcrowded schools. If there's a bit of vision, they could probably have sorted this out before they sold everything off. But they've sold it off. They've made the profit. Use some of that money to buy some land somewhere and build a school. It's pretty simple.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Bonham.
Mayor, for a really important minute. I'd just like to say, look, it's obvious that the housing cap on additional dwellings was lifted by the New South Wales Minister for Planning and Public Spaces, and was obviously a precipitous move. And what it's meant now is that the state government has got to scramble to find a school somewhere in the area. They're eyeing the iconic showground. It's unacceptable, and it's not suitable at all. I think some comments have been made about the veracity of the Telegraph newspaper article. It's irrelevant, really. It's been brought to the Mayor's attention that there's a possibility that the showground could be used for a school, and it would be remiss of the Mayor not to bring this up. So she has done what she absolutely has to do, and so I therefore support her effort to meet with the Minister for Education in an effort to find a solution to the problem and to find a place for the new school. It's absolutely appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bonham. Councillor Blue, you got a question? You've spoken, and then Councillor Casby.
Yeah, just a question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to ask your view on something. I was a little bit confused by the comments of Councillor Gretsiva around that this, the information presented in the mayoral minute came from the Daily Telegraph. The way I read it, and I just wanted to check whether that's correct, Madam Mayor, is that the actual information came from the department straight to council because they organised the meeting and then retracted the offer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, thank you.
And then the Daily Telegraph made an inquiry.
Perfect.
We
Oh,
knew
thank
about
you.
this plan.
Thank you. I understood it well. Thank you.
And I think I have a responsibility to raise it, because if we didn't raise it and it happened, the community would be outraged. Councillor Casby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, look, it is quite alarming. I guess I'm in the camp where I think we haven't been given any concrete details by the state government. I did hear that we had a meeting, so that's good, but I guess it would have been good for councillors to have a memo to be informed, which might be where the confusion came with Councillor Gretsiva, because I don't have any details or information, and all we have is speculation and an article in the Daily Telegraph. But in saying that, I really hope that it is not true, as it would seem to show a complete disregard for Council's long-term strategic planning and a real slap in the face for all of the hard work done at a local level, particularly when we've just adopted the Showground Master Plan. It would also be a slap in the face for our community for all of their input during the master plan planning phase, and again with making submissions during the recent public consultation period. We do desperately need schools, but we shouldn't have to choose between a school and vital green space, especially when it now has such high density around it. And this isn't any old green space. This is in the heart of Castle Hill. It has such history. It should probably be heritage listed. Our community love it, and it plays a really vital role in hosting cultural and community events, sports, festivals, concerts, markets, theatre, agricultural uses. This space is so vital for community wellbeing and connection. The recently exhibited Showground Master Plan really shows the potential, the future potential of this valuable green open space. It is far too valuable to be taken away from residents, and we shouldn't be put in a position where we have to choose between green space and a school. Yes, we absolutely need schools, but this is the time, I think, for innovative, creative planning in partnership and in collaboration with council. Can the state government use other parcels of land that they own? Can they consider a vertical school, as we've discussed here and I've brought up before? A high-rise school would make absolute sense in that precinct location. Open green space is at a premium, and I think it would be so wrong to take this much-loved area away from our community because successive state governments haven't got their act together in time to secure land for a school. So I do support your motion, and I welcome a meeting as your motion proposes, and I really urge the state government to think about the needs of our community carefully, work with our Labor councillors, all our councillors, and with council to come to a solution that benefits everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casby. Any further speakers? Councillor Hazelden.
We shouldn't lose sight of the key words in item 2, that we're simply writing to the Minister of Education requesting a meeting to discuss the government's investigations into finding a site for a new school. And I think some of the issues that Councillor Casby has articulated go to the core of this issue, and I think they're just the sorts of things from Councillor Casby and others that would be raised at such a meeting. My mind casts back to the era that the General Manager referred to earlier, when the former Civic Centre was disbanded and that land was available. That was clearly the obvious place to put a community facility as important as a school. Driving down Showground Road now, turning into Carrington Road, and just looking out at what's happening there is quite staggering. Tens of thousands of people. As Councillor Casby reminded us, green space is pivotal to the well-being of people, and the showground is a precious jewel that cannot be allowed to be simply diminished. So Madam Mayor, I would counsel anybody contemplating voting against your minute to again look at the key item, the tenure of this meeting in item 2, which is to simply request a meeting where all of these very legitimate concerns that have been expressed and articulated tonight can be laid in front of the Minister. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. Any further speakers? Councillor Jackson.
Just a couple of questions to kick us off. My understanding was that there was a developer that had land on Middleton and Fishburn that for a number of years had been proposing to the state government for that to become a school if they were to get some uplift in the development nearby. Is that accurate?
Mr. Edgar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand there were a number of proposals, that being one of them.
Yeah. So a number of proposals from developers to put a school, but nothing taken up, and now potentially faced with a particular point of having to have land taken from us that obviously through master plans, as already discussed, was allocated to something else. Madam Mayor, there's been a number of speakers tonight and some that have been very clear about showground and what it should remain, but others that weren't very clear at all. And I just wanted to see clarification from Councillor Gretsiva, Councillor Cartwright and Councillor Selvaraj about whether they support a school on showground or not.
Councillor Gretsiva, Councillor Cartwright and Councillor Selvaraj, would you wish to respond to the question?
I can respond, support or not support. I hope it should have a business paper motion with the detailed information. So my suggestion was that for me right now to have motion at the meeting, for me it's not enough information to assess what's happened. There is no official funds declared in prior state budget for that. There is no announcements on the school infrastructure website or whatever. This is no ministerial media release about it. So we don't have grounds to discuss I support or not support. Definitely we need green spaces. I'm in support Councillor Casby, but to discuss against or in support, I can't.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, and I'll get on to Councillor Cartwright and Councillor Selvaraj next.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
For Councillor Gretsiva, the item here in the motion is to seek a meeting with the Honourable Prue Car MP about schools in the Cashew Hill Showground precinct. And I think it would be really important for the council to be very clear about what the council as a whole expects during that meeting. And I think it would be important to be able to be clear to them about whether there is support or not from our council on building a school on showground. So in light of that, would Councillor Gretsiva like to nominate a support or not support to assist with your meeting with the Honourable Prue Car?
Councillor Gretsiva, should you wish to respond? It's up to you.
So I will be much pleased to organize a meeting with the PRUCA, definitely, to discuss and to have such meeting. But still, I with my opinion to vote against the motion.
Thank you,
Madam Mayor.
Mayor.
Just on to Councillor Cartwright about whether she supports a school on showground.
I echo exactly what Councillor Gretsiva has said. Yeah. I'm all for green space, absolutely. I've been a strong advocate in preserving Fred Catterson Reserve, and I also want to preserve the Hills Showground, absolutely. I'm all for green space. But as Councillor Gretsiva says, we don't have the details. And in fact, I only got to know about this today. So, and it was a shock, but my daughter, for example, my daughter goes to a public school. Both my son and my daughter have been in a public school. My son's just finished 2 years ago. My daughter's just started year 7. And I see for myself on a daily basis that they are bursting at the seams. The schools are overcrowded. And they've been overcrowded for the last 12 years. For the last 12 years, not just recently. So
Madam Mayor, I appreciate
So
the response, and it's very clear that
We
Councillor Cartwright doesn't have an answer.
we absolutely
But,
need.
Madam Mayor, we've had councillors here that have benefited from the schools delivered during those 12 years.
We
So it's really
absolutely-
difficult for councillors to stand up and actually talk about the Liberal government doing nothing when,
Do you want me
their
to
kids
answer
even
your
attend some of
question?
these schools.
Councillors, one at a time. I'm not sure you answered the question, but
I don't think there was an answer either. But
Okay, for 12 years, the schools have been overcrowded. So for 12 years, we needed additional schools for the last 12 years. So yes, we absolutely need additional schools. But we, as Councillor Grafceva has said, we need more information. We need the finer details. And absolutely, it's a no-brainer. We need, the Mayor and the General Manager needs to sit down with Prukar, absolutely. But today, there'll be a call for a division, yes or no, and at this stage I will be voting no because I need more information. I can't just simply vote yes without the detailed information.
you.
We need more detailed information.
that's why we're going
Thanks,
to see
Madam
the
Mayor.
Minister.
I'm even more confused than when I first started. I've heard both say that they support a
Councillor
meeting
Jackson?
with Prukar.
Councillors, one at a time.
Sorry, would you consider, could I ask a question of Councillor Jackson very quickly?
I haven't finished my
It relates
my
to...
questions yet, Madam Mayor. I've still got Councillor Silverage
Councillor Jackson.
to seek clarification from.
I just believe you're missing the key words, in principle. If you say, in principle, are you opposed to a school on this?
I don't need it in principle. I think it's pretty clear from many of us here whether the school should or shouldn't go on Castle Hill Showground. I don't know what more information is necessary to say no, a school shouldn't go there. But I understand that some might be confused and have found out about it today just by getting emails about media consistently from council staff indicating what's actually been in the media. So if they've only found out about it today, I'm quite surprised. So Councillor Silverage, do you have a response to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a great opportunity for council to take leadership. A great opportunity that the state government has finally started looking for a school. And I'm not so sure that they're actually fixated on showground. Now, as Councillor Grafceva said, we don't have enough information. And they're considering it, yes. They may be considering other sites which we're not aware of. Because showground is controversial, the media has reported it. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to take leadership, show state government where the school should be, and we should be leading the way. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thanks.
Thank you,
I'm done with my
Raj.
questions. Happy to
Councillor
speak.
Jackson, now you can speak now.
I agree. We absolutely need leadership, and the community expects leadership from their council representatives to say whether a school should or shouldn't go on Castle Hill Showground. And I hope that all the residents are aware and are clear that as this process progresses, that their nominated Labor councillors that we've asked questions to are unsure until they get further information. And I want to put it on the record, Madam Mayor, that I absolutely do not support school going on showground for all the many reasons spoken about tonight. Madam Mayor, there was a school opened at Tallawong last week, and we have quotes here from the Premier, Chris Minns. For too long, families in Sydney's northwest were promised schools that never came despite thousands of new homes being built. We are changing that. From the Deputy Premier, we inherited an infrastructure backlog that left students crammed into demountables for years. We are hard at work to fix it, school by school, classroom by classroom, and communities like Tallawong are starting to see the results. And then from the member for Riverstone, Warren Kirby, this is a proud moment for our community and proof that when we invest in public education, we invest in the future of every child. Madam Mayor, I absolutely support investing in public schools, but I don't support it at being at no cost and taking away community infrastructure for that to actually occur because planning wasn't done properly when offers were on the table, as we've already heard, about schools going within the precinct. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any further speakers? Councillor Uno, final speaker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I rise in strong support of this mayoral minute. The mayoral minute was clear, Madam Mayor. 1, the mayoral minute be received. Number 2, do you support the writing to the Minister of Education, the Honourable Prukar MP, requesting a meeting to discuss the government's investigations into finding a site for a new school in the Castle Hill Showground precinct? 2, Labor councillors, Madam Mayor, Councillor Cartwright and Councillor Gritseva have indicated they do not want a meeting to go ahead. Simple as that. If they decide to vote against this motion, they do not want you to engage with the Honourable Prue Carr about what the intentions are in a school. And I think Councillor Severage probably is the shining light of the Labor Party, Madam Mayor, within the Hills, because he's probably the only one that actually spoke sense and indicated support to take a position of leadership. And let's find the appropriate spot within Castle Hill for a new school. And I applaud Councillor Severage for his wise, thought-out words, Madam Mayor. It's very clear we don't have to worry about the Daily Telegraph or throwing out red herrings about ICAC investigations in other councils, Madam Mayor, just to basically muddy the water. It's very clear. When we had the Honourable Prue Carr asked for her position, she said it was a shame that a genuine attempt to seek information about the availability of council land. So they want to know about council land. In the Broader Hills area, in relation to a school, as she's the Deputy Premier and the Minister of Education. So we are using the Minister's own words here. She was inquiring about council land, Madam Mayor, the showground that has been a part of our community since 1887, almost 140 years, Madam Mayor. This parcel of land is the fabric of our community. It used to hold the Castle Hill Easter Show back in the 60s, which was the second largest Easter show after the Royal Easter Show within New South Wales, Madam Mayor. This has been the cornerstone of our agricultural history. And in 2020, Council had the foresight to go, we need to plan for the future. We need to have a master plan that will ensure that this space is used wisely and for the benefit of the thousands and thousands of residents that are going to be taking residency within the Showground Precinct, Madam Mayor. And this space is for them. This space is for them to enjoy with their families, with their children, and it must be protected. And we can't have weasel words from councillors around this table to not say, I support it being retained for green open space for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. And if the state government believes that we need more space for schools, buy land and build a school. Simple as that, Madam Mayor. And I hope that councillors take the time to educate themselves about the history of this beautiful space, and so it is protected into the future for generations to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. I'm in a good mood, why not?
General Manager, just to confirm, is the showground, is it Crown land or council land?
Predominantly Crown land under the care and control of council. There may be the odd parcel that is council owned, and there may be the odd parcel could be owned by Metro or leased by Metro. So predominantly though, Crown land under the care and control of council.
Thank you. No other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, got more than two standing for a division. Please be seated. Councillor, if you can vote on your keypads, please. All votes are in. That motion is carried, but for the tape recording proceedings of tonight's meeting, I will read who voted which way when it comes up on the screen. Voting in favour of the mayoral minute: Councillor Blue, Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cox, Councillor Massey, Councillor Casby, Councillor Hazelden, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Severage, Councillor Uno, and myself, Mayor Dr. Byrne. And voting against that motion is Councillor Cartwright and Councillor Gritseva. Thank you, councillors. That is the only mayoral minute for this evening, which some of you might be relieved about. Any petitions this evening? No petitions. We move to planning matters. The following items 2 and 3 are defined as planning matters pursuant to the Local Government Planning Legislation Amendment Political Donations Act 2008. Item 2, planning proposal and associated development control plan amendments for Cat Eye Creek West FP 224. Councillor Cox. You moving a motion?
Oh, sorry, yes, I'd like to move the recommendation from the business.
You're moving the recommendation as printed in the business paper. Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Cox?
No, I think we've all had a chance to read it. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Any speakers? No speakers. We have a motion moved by Councillor Cox and seconded by Councillor Hazelden. The recommendation in the report for item 2 be adopted. It's a planning matter, Councillor, so if you can vote on your keypads. You missed it by a long shot, sorry.
Well, all the reason, more reason not to bother. But you can vote.
Yeah, you still get to vote. Yes, please vote if you haven't voted.
Okay, all votes are in.
All
Madam.
votes are in. I'm glad that motion is carried. Thank you. It's unanimous. But again, for the tape recording proceedings, I will read the names of those who voted in favour. Councillor Blue, Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cartwright, Councillor Cox, Councillor Damasi, Councillor Casby, Councillor Gretseva, Councillor Hazelden, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Severage, Councillor Uno, and myself, Mayor Dr. Byrne. Thank you. We move to item 3. Councillor Blue has declared a conflict of interest and will be leaving the room. Item 3, submission on state government public exhibition planning proposal, Derrong Road and Old Northern Road, Dural 6/2024/PLP. Councillor Hazelden, you're on your feet.
To move the recommendation of the business report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Damasi, thank you. Councillor Hazelden, you wish to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I couldn't help but notice, and of course I was across this anyway, that this proposal has been bouncing around, and I use the term without hesitation, since 2016, which indicates, when we look through the timeline, it portrays a timeline of repeated, almost consistently repeated refusal. And Madam Mayor, those of us that live in this area, as most of us do, will be familiar with the travails of moving along New Line Road at almost any hour of the day, other than perhaps the middle of the night. And it is the rolling catastrophe of increasing traffic on New Line Road that is at the core of my sentiments supporting the recommendation of the business report, which I would note, Madam Mayor, is based around option 1, which is not to pursue with this proposal. Madam Mayor, I think in reading the business report, the letter on page 142 is particularly telling. Our officers advise that the subject site is not located within a station precinct or within the walkable catchment of high-frequency public transport or any agglomeration of local services. It is not in an area or along a corridor that has existing underutilised traffic and transport capacity. I refer to my earlier comments about New Line Road, Madam Mayor. Rather, the proposal would represent an isolated urban footprint in a rural area that would likely exacerbate existing regional traffic and transport issues that are already being experienced in this locality. And the letter goes on to say, Madam Mayor, while the proposal would result in a marginal increase in housing, marginal being the operative word, it clearly does not align with the current government's stated priority of delivering more, and I quote, well-located homes close to transport, jobs and existing infrastructure. So those two short paragraphs, Madam Mayor, encapsulate my sentiments, encapsulate what I believe Council's sentiments should be in further resisting this proposal. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. Any further speakers? Councillor Casby, you got him this time. And then Councillor Severage.
Pay me to be distracted. Look, thank you, council officers, for this thorough report. I specifically wanted to thank you on behalf of our community for insisting that proper process be followed and for really pushing back on the department, calling them out for a concerning and unprecedented level of intervention, specifically where the independent planning panel was directed to prioritise immediate government objectives over long-term strategic planning instruments. It was really quite alarming to read the letter from the department to the planning panel in attachment 1 and Council's letter to the department in attachment 2 of this report. It is vital that our planning processes remain transparent and free from undue influence. Councils and communities and even developers need certainty and consistency and expect that the rules are followed. But we're seeing this unravelling case after case where council engages our community, invests a mammoth amount of resources and time into strategic planning, all for it to be pushed aside by ad hoc state government captain calls. It seems the department on one hand is pushing for the strategic planning framework not to apply for this one individual rezoning application, but then in the new draft Sydney plan, they've kept this land within the metropolitan rural area where urban development is not supported, despite previously signalling to the planning panel that this would change. And what's more, the department's own circulars stipulate that the strategic merit test criteria must be taken into account. So this is a confusing and inconsistent ad hoc approach to planning. Our community is already understandably upset about bad planning affecting their quality of life, and unfortunately, council gets the blame for most of it. Developers are always going to try to push the case for varying the rules for their individual proposals, but for the benefit of our communities, we need to be able to trust that our planning instruments can stand up to this. And yes, we're in a housing crisis, but that means that we need to be even more careful planning, visionary planning for the long term, using innovation, creativity and future modelling, not uncertainty and shifting priorities and bending or breaking rules on a case-by-case basis. This goes to the heart of taking planning powers away from councils and ignoring strategic planning instruments that are used to carefully plan for growth in a way that benefits the local community. And even if with a focus on addressing the housing crisis, pushing this particular proposal doesn't stack up. The state government is addressing the housing crisis by focusing on well-located homes close to transport, jobs and existing infrastructure. We all agree this is the right thing to do. But how does this development proposal fit that description? There's no nearby station. It's not in a walkable catchment to local services. And it may well add extra strain, as Councillor Haselden has said, to the traffic congestion that's already a problem in Dural and along Old Northern Roads and New Line Road. Council is already meeting housing targets for density where it does make sense and infrastructure is already planned. The state government should be guided by the Commission report that states there is a need to do density better. We can all see that plain as day. It doesn't make sense to favour housing development in rural areas which are more expensive for taxpayers to service and divert those funds away from the infrastructure that is desperately needed in well-located areas. It really worries me that this proposal allows residential development to begin to encroach in our rural zones. And I really believe that our rural lands are important and they should be protected. And this view is obviously shared by all of the planning legislation currently in front of us. It worries me that the local traffic will get worse. Our Shire is growing and changing rapidly, and our community understands that with the housing crisis, development needs to happen in areas around the metro and the big centres, but on the condition that our low-density suburbs, our rural villages and our rural lands are protected. So I wholeheartedly agree with option 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casby. Councillor Severaj.
Mayor, I have looked at option 1 and 2, and I had, to me, yes, I have considered the fact that it is not of strategic merit, and I've listened very carefully to what Councillor Casby has stated. But when I looked at option 2, it did not look that bad to me. And let me just focus your attention on the fact that, we have looked at, Cherrybrook Precinct, where we're talking about 5,200, 400 high-rises, right? We're looking at Todd developments. And to me, yes, I understand that it's rural development, but is it that bad that 2 hectares of development gets reduced to 600,000 and 2,000? That's the first question I had, frankly. Secondly, I also see the fact that the community benefits, sewer connections, kiss and drop facility for the school, public open space to the school, improved pedestrian access, and they're also talking about a proposed provision of a 32-meter wide road corridor that would support the council's strategic objectives, even though additional funding to extend that may not be there. So I, through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager, given the fact that we have option 2 where there are several benefits, why are we sticking to the fact that it is rural development? I mean, is it so bad that your 2-hectare dwellings get dropped to 2,600 metres square?
Through you, Mr Edgar.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Mayor. Look, this is council's submission. We're not the decision maker.
Correct.
It's been to council a number of times in various forms over the last decade, probably. And it's fair to say it's one that's been close either way. You know, so there's times where we've supported it and it's moved on to the next step, then at other times we, as a council, haven't supported it. So the reason why there's 2 there is it just represents the balance of options, given that we've got to make a submission by the 30th of April. So we're giving the council, and I don't think it's been in front of this council this term, so it's given the history, the pro one way and against. Now obviously the council report recommends against simply because that is consistent with the last resolution of the council, but it's open to you to have a different view.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Jackson? Yes, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not often I get to say ditto to Councillor Casby, but happily in support of my fellow North Ward councillor. Just outlining, and I won't go into extreme detail, from page 121, the timeline submitted in May 2016. In Feb 2017, Department of Planning and Environment, Sydney West Central Planning Panel said it should not proceed. 2019, local planning panel said it should not proceed. 2020, DPE said it should not proceed. 2022, gateway alteration was issued by DPE that stated the planning proposal should not proceed. I think we're getting the point as we're carrying along. Continuously resubmitted to either council or the department. June 2023, Sydney City Central City Planning Panel advised council officers that department staff had directed the panel to be more flexible when considering applications where the potential for housing creation exists in response to the government's priorities to deliver more housing. That same panel that was given that direction in just a month later in July considered the rezoning review and determined that it should not proceed. And then we continue on, submitted again for the 3rd time, February 2024. June 2024, the local planning panel did not support it proceeding to gateway. On and on and on, Madam Mayor. I understand the point of the housing crisis, but as I'd already quoted the Premier, Deputy Premier and other members of Parliament, there has to be infrastructure that's got to go with a lot of this. I don't see any legitimate infrastructure considerations. We already know that particular spot, everyone travelling from all the outer suburbs that travel through that area is already congested. New Larrimah we've already heard about at the moment as well. There's no way in the world that we could accommodate this type of development in that particular area, Madam Mayor. I know that there's been quite a number of other proposals put up. We spoke about Showground earlier, could have been a school, but now it's residential. We hadn't spoken about Bella Vista Kellyville precinct. We've called for a school in that precinct for a long time. Whether that's coming or not, who knows? But definitely we as already outlined by the Premier and Councillor Cartwright, supposedly in the last 12 years we haven't delivered anything. If that's been acknowledged, then where's the delivery now? It's been nearly a full term and going up to another election. I'm sure there's potentially even councillors in here that are going to make a whole bunch of promises as part of their candidacy. But realistically, Madam Mayor, we don't have the infrastructure to support what is being forced upon us at the moment, and I absolutely support Council Officer's recommendation here that this not proceed, consistent with what we've said since 2016. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't bother foreshadowing, but as mentioned in the July meeting in 2024, the council did discuss this. I think I moved the motion, but it got defeated. At the time, I agreed with the recommendation of the officers that this did have merit, and I would be doing the option 2 scenario, I guess, if I was running this now. But the mood of the council then, as it appears to be now, seems to be opposed to this. I would point out to those saying that there's no walkable infrastructure, that it is literally adjacent to a school that children would be able to walk to. In terms of additional infrastructure, they'd be running sewage where there is none, and they would be giving us part of a bypass road that, although the State and Transport for New South Wales has said they're not doing, it is something this council has clearly said it wanted on several occasions. On balance, moving that kiss and drop zone is worth a fair bit of traffic on that main road. When I was a young lad, I used to play squash at the squash courts across the road from there, and I went to Redfield and I'd walk up Old Northern Road, and I'd walk along past that kiss and drop zone and walk past all the cars banked up along Old Northern Road trying to get in the kiss and drop zone. And I'd acknowledge the problems on New Line Road. That's the road I took to get home some of the way. But I don't think this is going to have that big an impact on New Line Road versus the positive impact were it to go ahead on the moving the kiss and drop off the main road. But again, I don't expect I'll be in the majority here.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Any further speakers? Councillor Uno.
Madam Mayor, just apologies if I missed it, but to make the question through to the General Manager.
Of course.
What was the impact of a VPA now that we've lost the delegation authority?
There is a VPA under negotiation.
Okay.
And remembering we're not the decision maker
Correct.
here. So this is a submission to the decision maker.
Yes.
And I'd imagine the decision maker, given the history and given where it's at, would be reluctant, but it is possible to make it without the VPA. But I would say, given the history, it'd be reluctant to. Because there's clearly a lot of public benefit that the applicant is relying upon, and that forms part of the VPA.
So you're saying that it'd be reluctant to give any additional VPA to the council?
No, if I understood your question, what happens to the VPA?
Yeah,
I expect it to come back to council. I expect the applicant to maintain the VPA and work with council through it. There is not furious agreement on the VPA, it's fair to say, but certainly I would expect the VPA to come before council.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Yeah, that's this one. It's rare to say that I'm torn, and I'm really sitting on the fence with this one. I was trying to go back and look at my actual voting pattern, because I always like to be consistent, and I'm struggling on this one. I really wanted to put that on the record. I think I like the fact that I remember talking about it like years ago. I'm delving into my memory here about the fact that it goes from 600 square metre lots to 1,000 to 2,000. So there's a bit of that gradual increase as it gets more into the regional area. I like the fact that they do provide that bypass, cut through land for the road. That's good as well. Am I feeling enough to be voting against the recommendation as put by the actual learned council staff? I'm probably not at this stage. As in, I don't have enough against it to basically vote against it. So I will be in favour of it, but I may have had a different view if we were the actual decision-making body. I would have probably looked at it with a lot greater depth, but it's. I think the fact that we're only providing a submission, I will be supporting the council's position on this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Uno. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Hazelden, you're right to reply.
Mayor, I think were we in knowledge tonight of a major expansion of New Line Road, I think I would share my colleague Councillor Uno's views on this because to have blocks of land that are up from 600 square metres on the urban fringe is an attractive proposition. But all of my thinking on this particular issue, Madam Mayor, always returns to New Line Road, a road which I experience personally regularly. Looking at the timeline again, Madam Mayor, I can't help but think of the game Whack-A-Mole. I mean, I admire the persistence of the owners and developers for this to have gone for 9 years, almost 10 years now, and pursuing this. But I think apart from a handful of people who would be fortunate enough to purchase a 600 or 1,000 square metre block of land on the urban perimeter, I think that there are no winners in this proposal, other than the owners and the developer. There's a clear winner. For somebody to persist for 10 years against a consistent, overwhelming pushback from government, local and state government, departments of planning, independent planning authorities, indicates that there's a lot of money at stake here. So, Madam Mayor, I'm not in a position to say any more other than I think I return to where I started with New Line Road. It's an absolute critical piece of transport infrastructure now, which is at beyond capacity. And further development on the urban fringe, which necessitates the use of New Line Road, is, in my view, Madam Mayor, unacceptable, and I support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelden. On item 3, submission on state government planning exhibition planning proposal Darrowong Road and Old Northern Road Dural. We have a motion moved by Councillor Hazelden and seconded by Councillor Damasi. The recommendation contained in the report be adopted. Is a planning matter, Councillor, so you can vote on your keypads, please.
And all votes are in.
All those are in. That motion is carried, but for the tape recording proceedings, I will read the names of which way each councillor voted. Voting in favour of the motion is Councillor Bonham, Councillor Cartwright, Councillor Damasi, Councillor Casby, Councillor Gretzeva, Councillor Hazelden, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Severage, Councillor Uno and myself, Mayor Dr Byrne. And voting against the motion is Councillor Cox. Thank you, councillors. It's carried. Can we ask Councillor Blue to return, please? Thank you. We now move to call the agenda. Councillors, I'll read each item one by one. If you wish to pull the motion or speak to it, please flag it and let me know. Item 4, LTF recommendations, March 2026, Darcy Road, Castle Hill, proposed Blister Island. Item 5, LTF recommendations, March 2026, Driftwood Street, Box Hill, proposed no stopping at pedestrian refuges. Item 6, LTF recommendations, March 2026, Gardiner Drive and Terry Road, Box Hill, proposed temporary left in, left out treatment. Item 7, Councillor Uno got in there, budget review as at 31st of March 2026. Item 8, property dealings relating to development matters. Item 9, information and status reports. Was Councillor Jackson. Councillors, can I have a motion to move item 4, item 5, item 6 and item 8 on Globo? Moved by Councillor Cox, seconded by Councillor Bonham. Is there any debate? No debate. I'll put those motions. All those in favour say aye. Those against? Thank you, councillors. They're all carried. The recommendations in the business paper for those items and now the resolutions of this council. We go to item 7, budget review as at 31st of March 2026. Councillor Uno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as stated in the business paper.
Second by Councillor Damasi. Councillor Uno, you wish to speak?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I think this it's important to speak to this item whenever it comes up because it is the backbone of this council, Madam Mayor. We have been a fiscally responsible council over the last 20 years, and that's in large part thank you to our finance team, Madam Mayor, where we've had learned, a highly experienced chain, hand down of very experienced CFOs that have guided this council through some choppy waters, Madam Mayor, and has ensured that we remain a fiscally strong council. Madam Mayor, we see, it's just got to pick up a local newspaper, Madam Mayor, we see a litany of wastage of hard-earned ratepayers' funds across councils across the Sydney metropolitan area. We're seeing blowouts of pool infrastructure, Madam Mayor, that is, doubled or tripled in costs. We've seen councils, I've named it in this chamber before, Madam Mayor, council after council raising rates 20, 30, 40% on their residents during a cost of living crisis, Madam Mayor. And even just most recently, and Madam Mayor, you shake your head. You shake your head when you see Blacktown Council deciding to send delegate of councillors, and I dare say maybe even the actual mayor, Madam Mayor over there, to Northern Ireland for a sister city, a junket. Sorry, unfortunately there's no other word that I can think of, but just it's a flagrant waste of ratepayers' funds when they are increasing the rates on those same ratepayers. Like, you gotta be, I see myself as a servant of the people here, Madam Mayor, and our number one responsibility is to manage their funds like it is our own, Madam Mayor. And I think because that we've been a council of consistency over many, many terms, Madam Mayor, we're seeing the results where we can see we build great infrastructure, really good infrastructure. Actually, I've got to thank the Group Manager for Infrastructure, Stephen Cullen, where he really oversaw Wave's aquatic fitness sector and just month after month bringing us status reports as to how that was on track and the progress. And we're seeing revenue now, Madam Mayor, increase of $1.2 million. Shows you that build it and build of quality and they will come. But then on the flip side, Madam Mayor, you see, unfortunately, due to some of the actions of a small group of individuals, Madam Mayor, that purport to be representing the community, has resulted in our legal expenditure increasing by $500,000. A poor use of funds where that could be going to additional sporting fields, libraries, community centres, Madam Mayor. It's, but I appreciate the transparency that we have before us. But Madam Mayor, as I mentioned before, I think it's important that we continue, and hopefully, Madam Mayor, that you will be holding that meeting with Minister Carr about education, but we also need to keep the blowtorch up to Minister Scully, Madam Mayor, around our residents of Box Hill, Madam Mayor, and the massive infrastructure shortfall that they are experiencing, that those residents to the north of our Shire, Madam Mayor, do not experience the same amenity and community infrastructure that we do here in basically East Ward. East Ward, Castle Hill, West Pennant Hills, Borkham Hills. We have it through previous generations, Madam Mayor, and these residents are missing out. And we need to do more and keep that attention onto the state government so that our residents in Box Hill get their fair share. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Uno. Councillor Severaj and then Councillor Gatseva. I think I saw your hand, didn't I?
Yeah, I think Councillor Uno already made a mention of this. When I look at councils, Madam Mayor, around New South Wales and in Sydney, we have more powerful councils, larger councils, but repeatedly what I hear is the Hillshire Council is now one in fiscal responsibility. And I would like to thank the General Manager and of course the staff for making it so. It's very easy, given the large expenditures that we have, and when we have a income of 25, 26 that is not spent, for it to move very quickly into the negative, as we have seen with other councils. So that hasn't happened. Thank you. I just had one question, and as I said, Councillor Uno mentioned it. This increase of 500,000 legal expenditure troubles me. What is the average expenditure around, for example, like-minded, like-sized councils, like say Parramatta or Blacktown? Is it around the same? Are we higher? Are we lower?
Usually, thank you, Madam Mayor. Usually in the past when I've looked at it, it's lower. It's hard to compare because it depends how you measure it, and different councils have different internal resources as well as external resources. Look, I think it's fair to say this particular time, there's no one singular reason. We've got a number of unique and unusual sort of cases where we're the respondent in, and we've got to make a budget provision for it.
Sure. I hope we can try and decrease that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sarraj. Councillor Graceva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Many councils in a difficult situation now, and despite increasingly complex economic environment, our council remains in remarkably strong financial position. We are forecasting a revised operational surplus of $28 million, and total cash and investments are projected to sit at healthy earth, $437 million by the end of June. It's reflecting the result of well-planned, forward-thinking management. Our capital works program which now stands at massive $355 million. In this review, we are injecting additional $1.2 million in the program. This includes bringing forward $850,000 to proceed to tender for the much anticipated Stockhorse Avenue Reserve in Box Hill. We are listening to our community, and we're delivering the green spaces and recreational infrastructure they deserve. I also want to commend the phenomenal success of the Waves Fitness and Aquatic Center. We are seeing a $1.2 million increase in income due booming gym memberships and learn to swim enrollments. Beyond our physical assets, we're also making vital investments in our digital infrastructure. This review outlined additional $750,000 investment to customize our Technology One system. Our SMEs identify that standard platform required specific enhancement to handle complex state legislative requirements, automate certification process, and improve our interactions with the community. This involves over 600 days of combined vendor and staff efforts to streamline 66 business processes. What is truly commendable in how this is being funded, because our executive team had the foresight, the quarantine year-end surpluses from 2023 and 2024 into IT reserve, the crucial upgrade is fully covered without impacting our current bottom line, and we still retain healthy $1.2 million in that reserve. But perhaps the most important aspects of this report ensure how we're managing external risks, specifically the global fuel crisis. We're aware of supply chain disruption and the spike in fuel prices that have triggered federal government National Fuel Security Plan. Our movers, waste collection trucks, and contractors laying asphalt for new roads, they all run on fuel. This is where I want to formally thank our general manager and executive team. Your strategic planning during this crisis has been exceptional. Rather than waiting for the shock to hit our bottom line, the executive team has proactively transferred almost $700,000 of our March surplus straight into contingency reserve to buffer against those exact price hikes. We also have $18.4 million already securely set aside in domestic waste reserve to absorb contractor fuel pass-throughs, ensuring our residents' bins keep getting collected without a hitch. So to the General Manager, our executive team, Chief Financial Officer, and entire finance and corporate strategy team, thank you. Your ability to balance massive capital delivery with software modernization, prudent service management, and rapid crisis response is exactly why our council is a leader in the sector. I commend this budget review to the Chamber and strongly support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any further speakers? Councillor Damasi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I also want to echo compliments to the General Manager and the Executive team, in particular Chandy and Anish, for the great work you guys have done. So you've kept this council in the black for over 20 years now, and that's a mean feat, and there's a lot of councillors who will be quite envious of our position here, and one of the things that we do when we do well is we do a budget review. So we just don't do a budget and look at it in 12 months' time, we review it. and we review to see how our budget is performing, and we make amendments, and which is very important. Being in business, and council is a business, is that something that we do, and we do well. So congratulations, because we've done really well. Actually, this is the first time I remember that our income is being less than what our expenditure is. And I thought, that started ringing alarm bells for me. And so I had to do a deep dive and have a look at that, and so to see where that money is being spent. So some of the things in the expenditure, which we've done really well at, we've actually decreased $400,000 for street lighting because of using LEDs in our street lights. So we actually saved $400,000 for our residents. That's great. However, the investment in technology, that's something we need to do, and that's something we're doing, and that's one of the reasons for, if you're looking at where the money is being spent, you know, $750,000 is being invested there, but our legal fees, you know, that's outrageous, that we have to spend more money on legal fees because of actions against some of the residents who are taking actions against this council. Madam Mayor, one of the things I'm quite proud of is that many years ago I moved a motion to get the Waves Fitness and Aquatic Centre built in this chamber, and it's now operating. And it's been operating for over 3 years now. We've had other councils try and do exactly the same thing that we did. We came in under budget, $55 million project, come in under budget. That is a phenomenal result. North City Council is coming to the news again this week because of the fees they're going to be charging their residents to go into their facility, which started probably about 2 or 3 months after ours started, and they still haven't opened it. So they're 3 years behind. Not only 3 years behind, but I think they're over $120 million that's cost them, with funding from federal and state governments. And we've done this on our own because of good financial management of this council. Looking at the results for Waves, $1.2 million increase, but we've also got a decrease there because, you know, you don't expect money to come in unless money is going out again. So looking at money coming in, $1.2 million coming in, and $534,000, you know, increase in expenditure. Okay, so to me, what a great investment that is. We're actually making more than double what we're spending at Waves, all because of that we've increased our membership, we've increased our Learn to Swim, and hopefully we can continue on that path once we get down to it and make a decision on, you know, making more space or more room for that Learn to Swim area by looking at that 25-metre pool outside and putting a roof over that and enclosing that and making more money out of that facility. That facility is a jewel in the crown here. I am quite proud of what we've achieved in this council, and again, congratulations to Chandy, Anish and the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Any further speakers? Councillor Hazelden.
To people tonight, you'd think we were celebrating a particular successful financial year, but fortunately this is really just part of a pattern that I've become used to over now some years. And as others have said, Madam Mayor, it is a credit to the General Manager and the executive team that, to use Councillor Damassi's analogy, this is a very large business, and businesses go off the rails and become catastrophes very easily if they are poorly run. Madam Mayor, in relation to the increase of $500,000 for legal expenditure, there are some in the chamber who would argue, convincingly I suppose, that this is the price of democracy. Unfortunately, to me, Madam Mayor, when I look particularly at later in the business paper when it reports of the expenditure to the 1st of April this year towards defending the actions of the Fred Catterson Action Group, $184,000 as at the beginning of this month, let alone what we've spent this month, is a major contribution to that $500,000. And I would argue, Madam Mayor, that far from being the price of democracy, that it is in fact a victory of ideology over pragmatism. And I hope, Madam Mayor, that this sorry episode is brought to an end one way or the other in the not too distant future to avoid further impost of our already outrageous legal bill. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question on point 2 of the recommendation. Council amend the General Manager's delegation for variations amounts not up to 25%. I know that there's some detail about it across page 174 and 175. Are we able to get some additional information about whether we've had any demands of materials or impacts of fuel that are currently over the 10%, and why the consideration between 10 and 25%?
Through to you, Mr Edgar.
Overall, at this stage, no. But as you can appreciate, it's pretty fluid, and the Fair Work Commission ruling requires us to be proactive every 2 weeks, so it could happen. Obviously, we're looking at our remainder of this year, what projects are left to run to the end of the year, how vulnerable we might be around either the cost of fuels or, importantly, the cost of materials. As it says in the report, we think we've got it for this year, but the change in delegation just allows us to keep moving and comply with our now legal requirements to respond. It's 25% of the original contracted value. Now usually that's 10%, and I'll report it through to Council in the monthly budget review. No variations given without a methodology, now just without a justification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I think it's, in as much as we talk about how well that we've expended our residents' money, that we're also, transparent in these type of moments in an understanding of, these type of potentially fairly large variations. I hope that our contractors aren't taking this opportunity to take more than what's necessary. We understand that everybody has taken a particular hit. I know I've had discussions with people around things at 5% and other similar things, but I would be quite shocked if someone's coming forward and trying to take advantage of council in this particular way. We know that government generally pays a bit more of a premium than other kind of private jobs, and I think that's already factored into those considerations, and I'd be extremely surprised if anything goes over, but at the same time I have a lot of confidence in yourself and council staff to be able to push back and really negotiate what's reasonable for these type of contracts, and appreciate the fact that it's in there that we can really keep things moving without having to hold anything up, because as we know and we're seeing at the moment, potential hold-ups can cost us a whole lot more. So I just wanted to make sure that we're being transparent about that and asking questions in these type of forums as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any further speakers? Councillor Cosby.
I just had a question through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager. Obviously, we don't know how long this war is going to go on and what's going to happen with the diesel prices and whether there's going to be continued shortages. I just wondered, is Council considering transitioning some of our equipment and plant to electrifying some of that sooner rather than later?
Through to Mr Edgar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, but I don't think it's going to be anything that would help in the immediate future. So there's a business case around our fleet and our fleet purchases into the future. Not just vehicles, but trucks and small plant too. So mowers and handheld sort of gear. A lot of that is now electric, and it's just a total life, just like our policies are, a total life cycle exercise in cost versus benefit. Certainly, look, no one can predict what's ahead of us, but and if you had said to me that we would enjoy a holiday period where fuel was actually cheaper than it was before the war, I probably wouldn't have believed it a week or so ago. So it is changing fairly rapidly. I think what we're doing is keeping it really well under review. I am very grateful we're in the position we're in the metro area. I've heard stories from other GMs around what's happening in the country where they only have a contractor and what they've had to do to support those contractors. I think we're in reasonably good shape, but you can never take it for granted, and we'll keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I just also have something briefly to say, and I'm not sure why this keeps being brought up, particularly given the recent appeal decision in favour of the community. I don't believe that any public institution should be above accountability, and if our community don't agree or are questioning if we've done our due diligence when it comes to considering all of the impacts on our precious local environment, then they do have a democratic right to do this, and we shouldn't criticise them for this and for actually caring about where they live. So, look, yeah, I also think it's fair that they question whether the use of 3 rugby union fields is the best use of their money, particularly the showground residents. So, look, we're not above questioning, and I think every institution needs to be accountable to their community. So if we can stop criticising our community, that would be great.
Thank you. Councillor Cox, you used to speak, don't you?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
I can tell. You start jumping out of your chair now. Councillor Cox.
Well, first I'd like to congratulate the staff. It is amazing this council is so financially robust, considering we have some of the lowest rates around. We still have amazing facilities, as Councillor Damasi alluded to, with Waves and many others. And just on North Sydney, I do find it funny because my father used to swim at the pool, and before they shut it down, and he showed me some of the proposals they first came up with to replace it, and I said, this is going to be a disaster. And he said, how do you know that? And I said, they're going to they're building artworks here. These are people, they've let architects run wild and they're building their portfolios. They're not building a community facility. And exactly. And now they're hundreds of millions of dollars wasted, or way over budget on something that was already there. We definitely have some of the best finances around, and that's something to be very proud of. And as Councillor Silverage said, it's easy to slip it up. Things often go awry when they're run by humans, so it's a true testament to the efforts of people that have kept us on track for so long. And it is sad that there's some unnecessary legal fees, but also I guess there are some different things going on, and it's good that we're spending where we have to and that we're able to. In terms of transitioning the fleet, in general, I'm opposed to transitioning things. And also I would point out, I suspect Councillor Casby's enthusiasm for electric things is to do with CO2 reductions, and I would point out to her that endless scientific studies have shown that running your petrol-driven thing into the ground until it dies and then replacing it with an electric is the best thing in terms of CO2 on the planet, because most of the emissions are involved in the production of either the electric or the petrol thing. So switching early is actually bad for the planet. Well, then there's nothing to talk about. Because if you're just going to switch when we were going to switch anyway, what are you asking? We are not above criticism, that is correct. This is not a democratic right, though people are exercising. It is a legal right. It is a right to challenge a legal process and engage the courts. And like all rights, it is subject to abuse. And some people could form the view that some people in the community, unhappy with a democratic decision made by a democratic body, are using a legal process to try and slow down something and make it almost so insufferably hard to get done that they overturn that decision. And that's what often happens in these cases. I don't think it's happening here, or will be successful. I would also once again, and this might have been part of my enthusiasm in standing up, Councillor Casby, we are not building rugby fields at this time. We are building community fields that are not yet allocated to anything. And to call them rugby fields is wrong, and it's that sort of misleading talk that leads the community. And so there's people spending money on legal defences, perhaps, under the misapprehension, because several councillors keep assuring them there's a deal with a private rugby club, etc., blah, 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 and that's just not the case. And I'm sick of correcting the record to people in emails and correcting the record in the chamber. You're all here, you voted on the things, you should know what we voted on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Uno, you're right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to bring our attention back to the travesty that is CP15, Madam Mayor. The gap now that these residents are being left holding the bag with, Madam Mayor, around Box Hill is now $207 million. That's roughly 2/3 of the total revenue of the Hillshire Council annually. This cannot go on. Our residents are being made to suffer with infrastructure and amenity that is below the standard that this council sets. And unfortunately, due to successive state governments, Madam Mayor, over the last 15 years, this problem has been exacerbated. But at the end of the day, the state government, Madam Mayor, needs to turn their attention, especially now, I believe this is now, federally, I think this is now the seat of Greenway, is what I believe. So it actually is a Labor-held seat federally. The state government needs to turn their attention to these residents and start to find ways over the coming years to fill this gap. The previous state government, Madam Mayor, achieved that with CP12 and CP13, Madam Mayor, that those gaps were filled. But CP15 has been left to run wild. And it is resulting in, and it's a travesty to say this, but we've got second-class citizens up there. We've got residents up there that don't enjoy the same amenity that residents down here do. No, exactly. Council has no amenity. They don't have the appropriate roads, they don't have the parks, they don't have the community centres, they don't have the libraries. They don't have the amenity that residents in the established areas of Kellyville, Borkham Hills, Castle Hill, West Pennant Hills enjoy, Madam Mayor. And the state government can't wash their hands of these people, these residents, these voters. They need to, this government has now been in power coming up to a term, and they have provided minimal support for those residents. So, Madam Mayor, it's important that we discuss this. I take my son to his local football game on the weekend. I still see the Fight for the Fairer Hills posters up. We need to keep that fight going because it's these residents that have been left holding the bag. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Uno. We're on item 7, budget review as at 31st of March 2026. We've got a motion moved by Councillor Uno, second by Councillor Damasi, that recommendation contained in the report be adopted. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you, councillors. We now go to item 9. And Councillor Uno, Councillor Uno is leaving the room. Item 9, information and status report. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation as per the business paper.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Blue. You wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I do. Everyone's favourite topic when it comes to information and status reports, Hills SES. Not going to go through an exhaustive list, but just got a question through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager. There is an update from February 2026 about a working group that was scheduled to progress to discuss building designs, and then in March 2026 talks about a report coming to the councillor workshop. Would that report be because of the progression of those meetings, and with the current date in the report being unknown, is there an idea of when that is likely to come to us?
Through to you, Mr Edgar.
Madam Mayor, in part, a couple of things. So one is just going through and retracing the sites we have looked at, because at the end of the day, there's still a site to be found. And there will be an update of the latest thinking around what a facility might need to do. And that is scheduled for a workshop next month, obviously not a decision-making forum, just information around where we've come from and where we think we go. I think it'll need it to come back to the chamber in some shape and form as that work progresses over a little while, but I think it's timely that we just at least bring ourselves up to date with where the current thinking is.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. It's pretty clear we've gotten to a point over quite a number of years, pre-current government, current government, that realistically we're not likely to be able to get any further support from this one, despite previous agreements and acknowledgements. And I think under legislation it's our responsibility ultimately anyway, so I might as well get on with the job and I guess stop talking about it and just get it done. Disasters aren't slowing down, so might as well make sure that we're ready before anything further significant happens. Councillor Una's out of the room, so I'm going to take the mantle from him around talking about the DAs on page 249. I note at the bottom of the page it says, to date this financial year, the Hills has assessed the most development applications in the Greater Sydney metro area at 870. The average number of assessment days to date this financial year is 113 compared to 111 last month and 128 last financial year. So it looks like it's very helpful to be able to get these reports, and congratulate council staff for doing such a significant amount of work and such a great job in being able to do that. From what I can see, and I'll talk about it on another page, it's not generally a forgiving task in working through the intricacies of people's needs, wants, desires, and being able to match that up with the law and trying to find some satisfaction along the way. I do know at the same time there was adjustments quite a number of years ago, especially when CDCs and other things could come in where other certifiers could assess things that would generally be something that would move through a council fairly quickly. However, now, from my interpretation, pretty much everything that's coming is something that's above that level of complication, and to be able to do a significant amount of this type of work within the timeframes that I've already called out, I think is extremely impressive, and want to congratulate council staff for doing that. Just also like to go on to page 253, customer satisfaction summary. I note that there's not a significant number of items for feedback across each of them, and would think at the same time, with such a small number in certain areas, it is not as helpful to be able to make a proper determination. I thought that there was generally a minimum number attached to certain things to make it more viable. But as I've already talked about, DAs, 2 responses, average score 25%. I don't blame our council at all for this, as already described. These are more complicated cases. It's once again trying to match that desire and want with the law and outcomes that our staff are required to be able to satisfy. So despite some of the responses in here, clearly our organisational average is 88.55, above the 80% average. So just wanted to acknowledge the teams across each of these particular areas, especially calling out childcare, which has at least a number of 15, and also HCC indicated on here, 103 responses and 95.6%. So when we're getting a fairer amount of responses, it looks like we're doing quite well in each of those areas. So again, congratulations to council staff. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Blue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a brief question on CP15 and through you to the General Manager.
Of course.
In regard to some advocacy we undertook as a council, and I apologise, I don't have the date with me here at the moment, but we undertook to write to the Honourable Michelle Rowland in regard to CP15. Have we heard anything back into what she was able to achieve to resolve this issue?
Madam Mayor, nothing comes to mind, but in fairness, we've written to all local members and given a status of CP15, where we're up with local acquisitions, ones that have been made, ones to be made, various road projects, various local park projects. I mean, it's in everyone's interest for every MP that's involved in Box Hill to understand where we're up to and what our problem statement is.
And to date, we haven't been able to secure a meeting with her as yet?
Not that I'm aware, Madam Mayor.
Okay, no worries, thank you. I also turn Council's attention to page 245, which is the tax on to the end of the notice of motion for Kenthurst and Annangrove Road that I brought to this council in June 24. The April 26 update, the Hills Grammar School is currently in the process of finalising a DA pack to allow lodgement to the Hillshire Council for assessment in the coming weeks. The school wants to engage with council once the DA has been lodged with no prior discussion regarding traffic improvements. I'm a little bit confused and concerned with that, given that it's well acknowledged within the Kenthurst community that we have some significant traffic concerns around this school during periods of drop-off and pick-up. And I appreciate everyone can put a DA in at whatever point in time they like. But given that this DA, from my understanding, is for an increase in numbers at the school, therefore you could presume we're going to have more traffic, that front and centre of the conversation would be traffic generation and how that's going to be resolved, rather than submit a DA and let's worry about it later. I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping this DA not only resolves the traffic concerns with the increase in traffic that's forecast, but also the traffic that currently generates that doesn't seem to be managed all that well. And look, I appreciate that not all traffic on Annangrove Road is generated by the Hills Grammar School. There are other schools on that road as well. However, I have noticed of late, particularly in the recent school holidays, that when there's no school, there's no issue. During those periods of time, certainly during other times there is during the day. So I do encourage the school to work with council and address these concerns, particularly if they're talking about increasing traffic numbers. I think it's something that North Ward councillors, if it's not every week, it's every day, hearing about traffic on Kenthurst and Annangrove Road, and it's something that seriously needs to be looked at. Those roundabouts are no longer suitable, that road is no longer suitable, and I am pleased to see that potential options for those intersections would be improved. I think it's well past the opportunity for a roundabout now at those small scales. You've only got to get a couple of buses that pull in and the traffic just grinds to a halt. Some of the other schools do really well in taking the traffic off the arterial road, articulating through the school, dropping off in there and then coming back out. I don't think that is as strongly in place in Hills Grammar as some of the others, so that may be some feedback that they could work on. But I've got no doubt that our staff are across this issue and will be advocating for the best opportunity and outcome for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blue. Any further speakers? No further speakers. Councillor Jackson, you're right to reply.
Waive that, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. We're on item 9, information and status report. We've got a motion moved by Councillor Jackson, second by Councillor Blue, the recommendation contained in the report be adopted. All those in favour say aye. Those against, that motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Can we ask Councillor Uno to join us for a hold 10 seconds? That brings us to the end of the meeting. Meeting closed 8:56. Thank you, councillors, council officers and members of the public.